Lucas Carter was the kind of kid who didn't quite fit into any of the usual boxes at school. At 14, he was already smarter than most of his teachers, though no one really noticed because Lucas never showed off. He liked to keep to himself, happy to spend time tinkering with gadgets, reading mangas, and, well, talking to his rats. Yep, rats. It all started when he was 10. Lucas found a tiny mouse stuck in a trap in his garage. Instead of doing what most kids would, run screaming or call for help, Lucas set the little guy free. He nursed the mouse back to health and let it go in his attic. The next day, there were 2 mice, then 3, then 5. By the time Lucas turned 14, he had over 500 rats, though he wasn't exactly keeping track. All he knew was that he always had company when he went up to his attic room after school. What Lucas didn't know was that these weren't just any rats. No, they were special. Over the years, they had bonded with him in ways even Lucas couldn't understand. He talked to them like they were his friends, not realizing they actually understood him. They listened, remembered, and, most importantly, they cared. Lucas's life wasn't all rat companionship and quiet afternoons. School was rough. Not because of his grades, those were stellar, but because of Kelvin Hendricks, the school's designated bully and Lucas's personal tormentor. Kelvin had it out for Lucas from day one. Maybe it was because Lucas wore glasses and always seemed to know the answers. Maybe it was because Kelvin didn't like rats. Maybe it was just because he could. Whatever the reason, Kelvin had made it his life's mission to make Lucas miserable. And boy, did he succeed. It had been a typical Monday, the kind where Lucas hoped he'd be invisible, but of course, that never worked out. During lunch, Lucas sat alone in the cafeteria, poking at his sandwich when, suddenly, Kelvin's shadow loomed over him. "Hey, rat boy," Kelvin said with a smirk, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You gonna share your lunch with your little pests?" Lucas tried to ignore him, keeping his head down. But Kelvin wasn't the kind of bully you could just ignore. He snatched the sandwich right out of Lucas's hand, then threw it onto the floor. "Oops! Looks like it slipped." The cafeteria exploded in laughter. Lucas felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he didn't say anything. Standing up for himself never worked. If he did, it would only make things worse. But the worst part of the day came after school. As Lucas was heading home, Kelvin and his goons caught him near the parking lot. "Where do you think you're going, rat boy?" Kelvin sneered. Before Lucas could answer, Kelvin shoved him hard. Lucas fell, his backpack spilling across the concrete. Kelvin grabbed his glasses and snapped them in 2. "Maybe next time, walk home with your friends." "Oh wait, you don't have any friends." The gang roared with laughter as they walked away, leaving Lucas on the ground. He felt a lump rise in his throat as he gathered his things. This time, it wasn't just embarrassment. It was anger. He was tired of being picked on. He was tired of Kelvin. He was tired of everything. When Lucas got home, he rushed upstairs to his attic bedroom and closed the door. He didn't want his parents to see him like this. They wouldn't understand. As soon as he was in his room, the rats appeared, squeaking softly as they crawled out of their little nooks and crannies. Some sat on his bed, others on his desk, and a few even perched on the windowsill, their little eyes fixed on him. Lucas wiped his tears and sat down. "You guys, you're the only ones who understand me," he said quietly. "I'm just so tired of it all. Kelvin won't leave me alone. He's been bullying me for years. I wish I could just make him stop." The rats listened intently. Lucas didn't know it, but they could smell Kelvin on his bruises and torn clothes. They chittered amongst themselves, exchanging glances. Lucas sighed and lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. If only there was a way to make him leave me alone. He didn't notice the way the rat's eyes gleamed when he said that. That night, while Lucas slept, the rats held a meeting. It wasn't the first time they'd done this, but this was different. Lucas had never been this upset before. Their human friend needed help, and they were going to give it to him. Led by their leader, a particularly large and intelligent rat named Scraps, the rats decided it was time to take action. They knew Kelvin. They had smelled him on Lucas's clothes many times. They knew where he lived. Tonight, they would make sure Kelvin never bullied Lucas again. Across town, Kelvin was in his family's garage, punching a heavy bag. He was feeling good after a long day of tormenting Lucas. It had been a solid performance, one of his best. He smirked as he threw another punch. "Rat boy," he muttered under his breath. "Such a loser." As Kelvin worked out, he didn't notice the tiny, dark shapes slipping under the garage door. Rats, hundreds of them, moving silently, their eyes gleaming in the dim light of the garage. Then, the lights went out. Kelvin stopped, blinking in confusion. "What the?" He walked over to the switch, flicking it a few times, but nothing happened. That's when he felt it, a sharp, stinging bite on his ankle. "Ouch!" he yelped, slapping his leg. He looked down, but nothing was there. Then another bite, this time on his toe. "What the hell?" he muttered, hopping on one foot. He grabbed a flashlight from the workbench and shined it around the garage. What he saw made his blood run cold. Rats. Hundreds of them, swarming around his feet, covering the floor. They moved as one, their tiny claws scratching against the concrete. Kelvin tried to run to the garage door, but it wouldn't open. The rats had chewed through the wires. He turned toward the side door, but before he could reach it, he tripped and fell. His hands hit the floor, slick with blood from the bites. And then they were on him, like a skydiver falling into an alligator pit. Hundreds of rats covered Kelvin, crawling over his arms, legs, face. He screamed, but it was muffled as rats filled his mouth, suffocating him. He thrashed wildly, but the more he struggled, the tighter their grip became. The rats were relentless, biting and clawing, tearing at his body. In moments, Kelvin was still. The only sound left was the soft, eerie squeaking of the rats as they completed their work. The next morning, Kelvin's dad went to the garage to check on his son. When he opened the door, he froze. The garage was empty, except for a skeleton lying on the floor, picked clean to the bone. Kelvin was gone. At school, the rumors spread like wildfire. No one knew what happened to Kelvin. Some said he ran away. Others claimed he had a breakdown. But no one suspected the truth. Lucas, for his part, didn't miss Kelvin. In fact, life got a whole lot better without him around. He didn't know what had happened, and the rats weren't talking. But every now and then, when Lucas sat in his attic room, he'd look at his rats and smile. "Thanks, guys," he'd say. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The rats would just squeak and scurry around, pretending they didn't know anything. But deep down, Lucas had a feeling they'd taken care of things, in their own special way. And from that day on, no one ever bullied Lucas Carter again. The end. If you would like to hear more amazing stories, be sure to subscribe, like, share, and hit that notification button.